The meeting in Budapest was cancelled. The continuation was reported regarding the long campaign of British-French ambitions on Russian territory and sanctions against the two major ambitions of the country. Donald Trump has finally seen the light and decided to destroy Putin. And what is really happening in the White House? I've always felt that Putin wants everything, not just peace. I think he's ready to negotiate now. We don't want him to get everything. As soon as the green light came from the regional office, the Soviet Senate and the Committee for Cooperation with Other Countries became active. They supported 3 legislative initiatives against Russia, which started the war in Ukraine. Among other things, this includes recognizing Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism and the use of prohibited substances. However, the Council itself admits that voting on these bills is impossible due to the government shutdown. Nevertheless, literally over the course of the evening, it seems that the US has turned back to Putin. But as analysts say, it's too early for Trump to get a hero's medal. Donald, as before, doesn't want a Ukrainian victory, but simply wants to end everything as quickly as possible along the current line, to undermine the badges of the great peacemaker in the West, and to leave all subsequent problems in the hands of the Europeans. Trump acts according to his own logic. Ukraine wants peace. They said, yes, we will stop at the demarcation line. That's all. Ukraine is ready to take a short and simple path. Russia doesn't want this. So, according to Trump's logic, the pressure should be on Russia. What happened to those sanctions? At the same time, according to Trump's logic, if tomorrow the Russians say they're ready to comply with the sanctions, they will coordinate on these sanctions and be ready to lift them. And others. He hopes that the sanctions will get into Putin's head. He will say that we have lost everything, you are losing, and it seems there is nothing left to do. But let's look at the sides because of this situation. Trump, who thinks of himself as an entrepreneur, analysts say he missed the most important thing: Putin's logic. A dictator couldn't care less about the threat to millions of Russians or about economic stagnation. He has his own priorities, and he won't change them, no matter what, whether it's a carriage or glass. He lives in a state of war, you see. The future of the Russian economy, oil prices, he doesn't care about any of that at all. We'll have money for the front, we'll have money for the army. There's money to keep the soldiers stationed, and they'll find it themselves, because they've already been here for 3 or 4 years, and they'll find more. That's all he thinks about. And he probably thinks everything will be fine. But what happens next? Something will break down, people will live badly, there will be no gasoline, nothing at all. Well, they'll find gasoline for the tanks, and everyone else will just have to walk. That's basically his entire logic. He doesn't take offense at anyone, not just Ukrainians. He doesn't take offense at Russians either, which overall is
something surprising? So far, the only one who actually responds to the demonstrative situation in the region is the wise one, Dmitry Medvedev, who shouldn't even be responding to this. Analysts say that, on the contrary, not a single word has come from officials, and Moscow is probably pretending that everything is going according to plan. Great, they bear no responsibility at all. Medvedev plays the role of the evil investor, and so does Hamid Trump. But as we've seen this year, Putin and Trump don't play well together. They just beat and fasten, they just process each other. Therefore, I don't think Putin will make any radical statements, deceiving Trump and dissendo, which we now enemies. He will simply say that he reacted to the children. We'll talk about this later, and we'll come to an agreement. I don't think he'll stand up for something wrong, like he'll come out, and say, well, that's it, I'm done. I'll surrender to the forces. I've lost the war, and the new sanctions have destroyed me. Will Vladimir Putin be able to get everything back, and will Trump fall for empty promises and stall for time? It's clear to analysts that, unlike at the meeting in Ankara, the US president realized more quickly that the desired victory would not happen, but it looks like the pendulum has swung. India and China, as well as the media, claim that they will be forced to buy Russian black gold. Will Putin scare Trump again, or is Kremlin diplomacy maintaining tradition? Such a special committee between the Russian dictatorship and the American president, which in my opinion, was supposed to take place within 2 weeks.
It was warned. The pilot meeting between the two sides, represented by Lavrov and Ruby, which was supposed to be held on October 23, has already been tracked. According to CNN, during the phone conversation, it turned out that the representatives had completely different views on how to solve the problem. After this information, which leaked to the media, Lavrov himself responded. He basically confirmed that the Russians, as before, remain on their land. I want to officially confirm that Russia has not changed its position compared to the understanding that existed during the lengthy negotiations between Putin and Trump in Alaska. These understandings are based on the agreement that President Trump formulated in a very succinct way when he said that what is needed is a long-lasting, substantial peace, not a direct substance that leads to nothing. We remain fully committed to this formula, as it forms the basis of our ongoing strategy and demonstrates our steadfast dedication to the principles we have set. Peskov, who serves as the official spokesperson, has also started to echo the statements made by his colleagues from Crimea, repeating their claims, which are widely considered to be unfounded and lacking in credibility. They say, "How can we uphold something that hasn't been agreed upon? Upon you. I can't endorse something that hasn't been put in writing." Neither President Trump nor President Putin gave a specific timeframe for something that wasn't put in writing. And preparation is needed, serious, thorough, and careful preparation. You've heard statements from both the American side and from ours that this may take some time. So why not?
Firm dates were set at the beginning and
Moscow is making damaging statements that are not in favor of Putin's visit to Budapest. They say that travel is unsafe for rising dictatorships because there is a risk of assassination by secret services, and the trip to Hong Kong is long, and there are floors that have declared they could make arrests. Putin is capable of terrorist actions. It's incredible that conspiracies took place between Lavrov and Rubio. They couldn't agree on an important issue that needed to be resolved before the leaders could reach an agreement. This is absolutely realistic and possible. But elsewhere, other hidden elements are also possible. This is more related to Russian diplomacy, to obfuscate again, to create uncertainty, and then cheerfully and pointlessly make concessions to resolve some issues. That is, to offer yet another, very small and insignificant position. Along with this process,
Volodymyr Zelensky plans to attend a meeting with the Grand Coalition, which partners in London are organizing in a timely manner. On October 24, in connection with the conclusion of the EU draft, media outlets report that at the meeting, European leaders will formulate their decision to provide financial support to Ukraine for the next 3 years using seized Russian assets.
Of course, the plan is not for us to fight for 3 years, but to pressure Russia during these agreements. This is the real plan. The main thing is that Russia listens to Ukraine's demands and says, Ukraine has 140 million, plus its own money, plus finances from our partners. In total, this could be 200 to 300 million over 3 years. These amounts are super comparable to the sums that
Russia currently has. Secondly, according to media reports, Italy will soon join the NATO initiative to purchase American weapons for Ukraine. Its previous government was opposed to this, using frozen Russian funds. Ukrainians also plan to buy 25 Patriot systems from the United States, which protect Ukrainian cities from attacks by the Russian army.
Ukraine is preparing for a new stage of the war. Ukrainian President Donald Trump, in comments ahead of his next meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky, stated that Kyiv prefers to go on the offensive. According to the American leader, this decision will be one of the main topics in his talks with the Ukrainian president.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.
We will talk with him about the war, and we will talk about the fact that, as I understand it, they want to go on the offensive. I will make a decision on this matter, but they want to start an offensive. You know, we have to make a decision. We are talking about small areas that were occupied by the Russian army in the Donetsk region, the so-called volunteer Dobropilia Selyan, and the Sumy region in the north. These are two places where Ukraine is currently holding back Russian forces. It may not be fast, and it may not be on a large scale, but it is working.
As in the Donetsk region, a strong counter-operation by Ukrainian forces continues in the Pokrovsk sector. The Russian army is facing enormous threats as it tries to advance into the city. Progress in Pokrovsk is becoming an even greater obstacle for the Russian army. Thousands of occupiers are disappearing on the outskirts of the city and in nearby villages, according to the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. In the city itself, the fight continues against enemy sabotage groups who keep trying to gain a foothold. There, the military is carrying out stabilization and counter-sabotage measures, as well as active defense. Thus, as of August 21, 2025, Ukrainian defenders have eliminated about 14,000 Russian occupiers. Of these, 8,402 were killed in action, and 5,419 were wounded, and 124 were shot. Additionally, 182.8 kilometers of territory were liberated, and another 230.1 square kilometers were cleared of sabotage groups. Enemy losses amounted to 1,289 units, including 32 tanks and 101 naval vessels. Vehicles, 154 artillery systems, 5 multiple launch rocket systems, 435 vehicles, 562 motorized vehicles, and over 4,000 drones.
From the standpoint of the Ukrainian army's balance, it can disrupt Russian mobile units and also systematically retreat, and I think the balance has been maintained. Retreat easily for as long as possible and pose maximum threats to the Russian army. It is believed that sooner or later the Russian army will no longer be able to carry out such routine offensive actions due to the large number of losses, and they will be forced to stop at some boundary. The Russian Federation has continued to expand the ring around Pokrovsk for 13 months. The only place where Ukraine continues to try to attack and encircle something is Dobropilya here. This is the salient from a month ago that the Russian Federation marked. But even there, things are not going so well, because the Russian army keeps sending people there to hold this salient, to maintain this position, and to try again, but with many different large forces to regroup. In this segment of the front, they are pulling back the Ukrainian front line. At the same time, Trump, commenting on the war, once again frightened the Russian dictator, Putin, with a call to stop the killing of Ukrainians. According to him, the Russian Federation has already lost about 1.5 million people in the war, and these are mainly military personnel. Stop killing Ukrainians, stop killing Russians. I think this is very important. Now, in order to finally, so to speak, synchronize our positions with the Americans to determine in which direction we can move, because Russia is intensifying its attacks and continues to put pressure on the front, and this obviously raises a very serious question. Will we be able to continue to effectively resist all of this, especially if the Russian Federation continues on an ongoing basis to receive support from countries that have also turned their backs on the modern peaceful order? And the question is, to what extent can we hope for a peaceful resolution in the foreseeable future? Will Trump really change his approaches and views on how to achieve a peaceful settlement, or will it be another historical process, so to speak, for a long period? Thus, the upcoming meeting between Trump and Zelensky becomes a key moment, one that will largely determine not only the future situation on the front lines, but also the coordination of military support, the development of strategy, the ability to counter Russian aggression, and the strengthening of Ukraine's position in this war.